Most African project developers approach development finance institutions the wrong way. They send a cold email with a deck attached. They get no response. They conclude that DFIs are inaccessible. They are wrong. DFIs are actively looking for bankable projects. The problem is the approach, not the institution.
So there is a correct way to engage a DFI.
There is a correct sequence, and if you follow it, you dramatically increase the probability of getting into a room, getting your project reviewed, and getting a term sheet. Episode 4. This is how you do it.
Let us start with the landscape. Who are the major DFIs operating in Africa, and what does each one fund?
6 institutions you need to know. First, the African Development Bank, AfDB, headquartered in Abidjan, with a $20 million minimum for sovereign operations and non-sovereign operations available for private sector deals. It funds all sectors, with priority on energy, water, transport, agriculture, and urban development. Second, IFC, the International Finance Corporation, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group, $10 million minimum. Private sector only, no sovereign lending. Priority sectors are climate, agribusiness, manufacturing, and infrastructure. Third, DEG, the German DFI, €5 million minimum, private sector focus, strong in renewables and agribusiness. Fourth, Proparco, the French DFI under AFD Group, €5 million minimum, strong on climate, health, and education finance. Fifth, BII, British International Investment, $5 million minimum, focusing on climate, digital infrastructure, and health. Sixth, Afreximbank, the African Export-Import Bank, $10 million minimum, specializing in trade finance, project bonds, and intra-African trade under AFCFTA.
How do you decide which one to approach?
4 criteria. Mandate. Does this DFI finance your sector and your project structure? Ticket size. Is your capital ask within their minimum and maximum range? Country. Is this country in their active deployment portfolio right now? And co-financing appetite. Are they likely to work alongside other DFIs or commercial banks on this deal? Answer those 4 questions before you send a single email.
Take us through the AFDB in more detail. How does a private sector developer actually access it?
The AFDB has 2 primary windows. The sovereign window, which funds government projects through national budget lines, and the non-sovereign operations window, which is the entry point for private sector developers and SPVs. If your project is privately led, you are going through non-sovereign operations, not the sovereign desk.
And the key programs within AFDB?
Desert to Power, 10,000 megawatts of solar across the Sahel, with active procurement in Chad, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, Senegal, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. $20 billion in the pipeline. The Affordable Housing Finance Program, the Enable Youth Program for Agribusiness, and the Africa Climate Change Fund for climate-aligned blended finance. If your project sits inside one of these programs, your engagement pathway is clearer.
How do you make first contact with AFDB?
Submit through the AFDB project inquiry form on their website. Simultaneously, identify the country manager for your country and the sector specialist for your project type. Request a pre-screening call through the country office. The country office is your gateway. They will decide whether to route you to the non-sovereign operations team in Abidjan. Do not email generic AFDB addresses. Find the right person.
What about IFC? What makes it different from AFDB?
IFC is exclusively private sector. It does not lend to governments. It is also significantly more rigorous on environmental and social standards than most commercial lenders. Every IFC-financed project must comply with the IFC performance standards, all 8 of them, and must demonstrate additionality.
What does additionality mean in the IFC context?
Additionality is the question IFC asks first. Does this project need IFC involvement to happen? If commercial banks can finance it without IFC, IFC will pass. Additionality can be financial. IFC offers tenor, currency, or pricing that commercial markets won't. It can be risk-related. IFC's presence de-risks the deal for other lenders. It can be knowledge-related. IFC brings technical assistance or ESIA expertise. Or it can be demonstration value. This is the first project of its kind in the country, and IFC's involvement proves the model.
And IFC's flagship programs in Africa?
Scaling solar. IFC structures and tenders solar. IPP programs, on behalf of governments, creating bankable projects ready for private sector investment. Manufacturing Africa focuses on industrial and manufacturing projects that create employment. MIGA, IFC's Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, provides political risk insurance for projects facing sovereign risk exposure. If your project qualifies for scaling solar, you skip the standard origination process entirely and enter a structured procurement.
Let us talk about the European DFIs, DEG and Proparco.
DEG, Deutsche Investitions- und Entwicklungsgesellschaft, is Germany's DFI. €5 million minimum, up to 15-year tenor on debt, strong focus on private sector. DEG has a particular strength in long tenor debt that commercial African banks cannot provide. They often co-finance alongside AfDB or IFC on the same transaction, which makes the combined package more attractive to a sponsor. Proparco is France's DFI, part of the AFD group. €5 million minimum. Proparco has deep expertise in climate finance and green bonds. If your project has strong climate credentials, renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, greenhousing, Proparco should be on your co-financing list. They can also access AFD's concessional windows for blended finance structures.
And BII?
British International Investment, formerly CDC Group, focuses on climate, digital infrastructure, and health. $5 million minimum. BII is increasingly important for digital infrastructure projects in Anglophone Africa, and for climate-aligned deals that need a UK development finance anchor. Like IFC, BII requires ESG compliance and has a strong additionality test.
So you have identified your DFI. What is the correct sequence from there?
7 steps. Step 1. Complete your feasibility study. Step 2. Build a bankable financial model. DSCR above 1.3, IRR above 15%. 3 scenarios modeled. Step 3. Prepare your concept note. 2 pages, 5 elements. Step 4. Identify the specific DFI whose mandate, ticket size, and country portfolio match your project. Step 5. Get a warm introduction through an advisor, a co-investor, or a government body that has an existing DFI relationship. Step 6. Submit your concept note through the official channel, project portal, country office, or direct officer contact. Step 7. Only after the DFI expresses interest do you invest in a full information memorandum. Never reverse steps 6 and 7. Building a full IM before you have DFI interest is the single most common and expensive mistake in African project development.
Why is the warm introduction so important?
DFI investment officers receive hundreds of unsolicited project approaches every month. A cold email gets screened out. A project that comes with a referral from a trusted advisor, an existing portfolio company, or a government minister gets a meeting. The project does not change. The context does. Advisors and co-investors who have existing DFI relationships are not a cost. They are an access mechanism.
If you do get a first meeting, what do you bring?
7 documents. Your concept note, 2 pages, standalone readable. A project teaser of 5 pages, with summary financials, proposed structure, and site photographs if available. Your financial model in Excel, DSCR, IRR, NPV, 3 scenarios. A sponsor profile, company overview, and team CVs that evidence track record. A permit status matrix, what regulatory approvals you have, what is pending, and your timeline to resolve each one. A preliminary ESEA plan confirming IFC performance standards alignment, and your proposed capital structure, debt-to-equity split, preferred instrument, and use of proceeds.
That is everything a DFI officer needs to decide whether to escalate.
Exactly. They are not deciding to lend at the first meeting. They are deciding whether to take the next step. Give them everything they need to say yes to that step, and nothing that distracts from the core investment thesis.
Walk us through what happens after the first meeting.
6 stages. Stage 1. Concept screening, weeks 1 to 4. The DFI does a desk review. Does the project fit their mandate? Is the sector and country in their portfolio? Is the ticket size right? Projects that pass move to Stage 2, the initial meeting, weeks 4 to 8. This is where you present and the DFI asks the hard questions. Stage 3, preliminary due diligence, weeks 8 to 16. The DFI reviews your financial model and begins a technical assessment. They may commission an independent engineer for a preliminary site review. Stage 4, full due diligence, weeks 16 to 28. This involves independent financial, technical, legal, environmental, social, and integrity due diligence, conducted by specialists appointed by the DFI at the sponsor's cost. Stage 5, credit committee, weeks 28 to 36. The DFI's internal credit committee reviews the due diligence findings and approves the transaction. This is where a term sheet is issued. Stage 6, financial close, weeks 36 to 52. Final legal documentation, conditions precedent satisfaction, and first drawdown.
So the full timeline from first contact to close is 9 to 12 months at minimum.
For a well-prepared project, projects with documentation gaps, an incomplete ESIA, a financial model that fails due diligence review, a legal title issue, can take 2 to 3 years, or never close. The quality of your preparation at entry determines the speed of your exit.
You mentioned co-financing. When does a deal involve multiple DFIs?
Almost always on transactions above $50 million. The typical African infrastructure financing stack has 5 layers. Grant or viability gap, funding at the top, 0 to 10% of the total, where a tariff gap needs subsidy. DFI senior debt, 30 to 50%. Concessional, long tenor, climate windows. Commercial bank debt, 20 to 30%. Local currency preferred. Mezzanine or subordinated debt, 5 to 15%, to bridge the gap. And sponsor equity at the base, 20 to 30%. First loss, highest risk, and return. The most common co-finance stack on African energy transactions is AfDB as lead DFI, IFC as co-lender providing additionality arguments, and DEG or Proparco as a third lender bringing European concessional capital. That combination gives the transaction political cover, environmental credibility, and long tenor debt that commercial markets cannot match.
How do you get all three to agree?
You approach them in the right order. Lead with the DFI that has the strongest mandate fit and the highest ticket appetite, usually AfDB or IFC. Once you have a term sheet from the lead DFI, use it to approach the secondary lenders. A term sheet from AfDB significantly de-risks the deal for DEG and Proparco. They are not taking a first bet. They are joining a deal that the leading African DFI has already vetted.
What are the most common mistakes developers make in DFI engagement?
7. First, cold email to a generic inbox. DFI officers deal with hundreds of unsolicited approaches. Get a warm introduction. Second, approaching the wrong DFI, sending a sovereign infrastructure project to IFC, which only does private sector. Third, no financial model. A narrative without numbers is not a project. Fourth, approaching before you are ready, using your one first impression before your feasibility is complete. Fifth, wrong ticket size, submitting a $2 million project to an institution with a $20 million minimum. Sixth, ignoring ESG requirements, no ESEA plan, no community consultation records. This causes an immediate decline at first screening. Seventh, overpromising returns, presenting an unsupported 30% equity IRR that the financial model cannot justify. DFI credit analysts will find the error. When they do, the relationship ends.
When you finally receive a term sheet from a DFI, what does it contain and what should you negotiate?
The term sheet sets out the facility amount, the tenure, typically 10 to 15 years for infrastructure, the interest rate structure, fixed or floating, the equity requirement, the security package, the conditions precedent before drawdown, the financial covenants including DSCR maintenance ratios and reserve account requirements, and the ESG covenants, IFC performance standards compliance, annual reporting obligations, community KPIs.
What terms can actually be negotiated?
More than most developers realize. Interest rate spread. DFIs have pricing bands, and a well-presented project with strong ESG credentials can negotiate at the lower end. Tenor. If your cash flow model supports it, push for 15 years rather than 10. Conditions precedent. Some CPs can be moved to conditions subsequent, reducing the burden before first drawdown. Reserve account levels. The DSRA and O&M reserve requirements are negotiable within limits. Get an experienced transaction advisor in the room during term sheet negotiation. Every basis point and every year of tenor affects your equity returns significantly.
For project developers who are ready to start DFI engagement, what does AIB Corp Ltd offer at this stage?
AIB Corp Ltd provides end-to-end DFI engagement support. We begin with DFI matching, researching which institution, which window, and which officer is the right entry point for your specific project. We prepare your submission package, concept note, IM, financial model, and sponsor profile, all to DFI submission quality. We manage the submission process and facilitate introductions to DFI investment officers where we have existing relationships. During due diligence, we manage document requests, coordinate independent advisor appointments, and ensure your team is prepared for every DFI information requirement. During term sheet negotiation, we provide structuring advice on facility terms, covenants, and conditions precedent, all on a retainer and success fee basis, structured to align with African project budgets. Confidential initial consultation at www.aibcorpltd.com.
Getting into a DFI's room is a process, not a contact. Prepare the project first, then follow the sequence.
That is Episode 4. If you now understand how each major DFI operates, what they fund, and the correct sequence for engaging them, you are ahead of the vast majority of African project developers approaching these institutions today. Subscribe for Episode 5, From Concept to Financial Close, the complete 6-stage project development framework.
Subscribe now. Every week, AIB Corp Ltd gives you the frameworks, the DFI data, and the deal structures that African infrastructure developers need to attract institutional capital.
Subscribe. Share this with any developer preparing a DFI submission. Visit you@aibcorl.com and tell us in the comments, which DFI are you targeting and what stage is your project at? We read every comment.